Welcome to the latest episode of the Mint Door podcast, your sanctuary where high achievers and dental professionals navigate the journey from burnout to brilliance. Today, we're not just sharing insights and stories, we're extending an invitation to something extraordinary, our Mint Julep weekly newsletter.
Imagine this, a weekly pick-me-up delivered directly to your inbox, crafted to leave you feeling refreshed and inspired. The Mint Julep is your moment of refreshment, a virtual oasis in the hustle and bustle of daily life. It's like meeting a go-to friend who always knows just what to say to lift your spirits and fuel your drive.
Each edition of the Mint Julep is a blend of inspiration, positivity, and a lighthearted, fun-loving attitude, carefully curated to help you maximize life's little joys. Picture it as your weekly virtual happy hour, a place where you can unwind, reflect, and rejuvenate, all while being part of a community that understands and shares your aspirations.
So why wait for the weekend to enjoy a Mint Julep? Join us and let's celebrate growth, resilience, and the endless pursuit of happiness every week. Subscribe to the Mint Julep weekly newsletter today and let's raise our glasses to living a more inspired, joyful life. Here's to maximizing your life's little joys, one Mint Julep at a time. Cheers.
So on to today's podcast episode, where we're inviting Rebecca Herring. And she's the founder and CEO of Transformational Dental Coaching. Rebecca is an experienced dental coach with over 15 years in the industry, specializing in transforming dental practices and empowering teams. With a diverse background spanning from front desk coordinator to executive leadership roles, she brings firsthand knowledge and expertise to her coaching approach. Rebecca's passion lies in enhancing team training and dynamics, refining SOPs, and hiring and training remote offshore team members. Also, fostering the patient-centered care, ultimately driving practices toward sustainable success and profitability.
Rebecca currently serves as the Vice President of the Peak to Peak Study Club, a sponsored DPLN of the American Academy of Dental Office Management. She's also a co-host of the Dental Decoders podcast. In her free time, she and her husband enjoy spending time outdoors, hiking, camping, ice climbing, and spending quality time with their 7 children, their spouses, their grandson, who just turned 3 years old.
So join us today as we talk it out on the Mint Door podcast with Rebecca Herring. Fantastic. We are super excited to be here with Rebecca Herring. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today.
Thanks for having me, you guys. I'm really excited to be here with you.
We always love talking to you. And so I'm excited that this will be no different, a fun conversation, learning about all the ways that you enhance dental teams. And I know that you love working with teams and you like really enhancing the training and team dynamic. And so how do you do this and how do you approach that to drive sustainable success and profitability?
Right. Lovely. Great question. And one of the first ones I dive into when I'm working with teams, of course, because success is always, of course, what we want to bring out whenever we're working with teams, even individuals, and doing even one-on-ones with teams. So the first thing we have to do is see where they're currently at as a team. I want to know and I want to understand where they exist in their team dynamics, where they have strengths, where they might have some areas of weakness or areas that they want to work on, and where they have areas that they want to make improvements and what those areas look like and where their ultimate goal they would want to be. And then we want to dive into some specific skills that they want to learn and where their team might have knowledge gaps within their team. Specifically, we find that patient communication Sometimes those clinical procedures, if they don't understand exactly what those procedures are and what they mean, they may not be billing those correctly, may not have the right information to provide to the insurance companies. And sometimes there's just administrative tasks that they might, some people on their team might have more knowledge of and then others. And we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page so they're all communicating effectively and the same way. At that point, I like to create a tailored training program to be able to address and identify their specific needs for their practice. Sometimes I like to bring in the doctor if we can, or the providers in their office. I like their input too, if they feel like there's some pain points for them with their team in general. Sometimes their input is also very important at that point in creating those customized training programs, that they can have their input as well if there's areas they want to see strengthened with their team as well. These custom training programs that we identify the needs can be in-person workshops, they can be online courses we can create, or more specifically, sometimes they want you to come into their practice and do some of that on-the-job training with their teams. Sometimes those are more effective. We can record them and they can keep them in their office for training in the future when they onboard more team members. The most important thing when I'm working with the teams, of course, is always to encourage open communication among the team members so that they feel like their culture, of course, is always about open communication, but also being willing to share ideas. And when they're different, that they're always welcomed. Because sometimes, as you know, sometimes when a new team member joins our team, they're going to have new and fresh ideas when they come on board. And sometimes being open to their insight and their ideas is always great, because sometimes it's their fresh idea that gives us new perspective when we are struggling with team dynamics and communication. Sometimes someone comes in with an idea that you're just like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. Mm-hmm. And that can sometimes come into some of those trainings with those team members.
I love how you create custom programs for each office, because, you know, we all know that every office is completely different. But I also really am floored that you provide that recording so they can use that in the future. What a great gift. And I'm curious what your feedback is when teams find out that they'll have access to this great training that you did in person in the future.
Well, I think that, you know, for teams, especially when you're going to invest in a coach to come to your practice with you, you know, whenever we're learning something new or someone provides a different type of perspective for a practice to learn and to grow with, it takes a couple times when you're learning that new idea, or you give them a fresh perspective on something, or you're going to teach them a new protocol on a way to do something for that practice that's going to be brand new. That's really hard to go in and teach it one time and go over it a couple times with their team and then say, there you go, have a great day. And it's, you know, it's a couple weeks later and they say, what was that what did we decide we wanted to do? What did Rebecca say? And it's nice to have something that I'm more than happy to let them record anything that we do in training, because I think it's important that if they've paid for that training or they've paid for an idea, they should always be able to go back and review that. It's also part of that emphasis that I make on continuous learning. If you aren't always learning something, then you're never bringing anything new to the table. You can't bring new ideas. So I'm always encouraging teams to pursue more education, more learning, developing their opportunity to grow and bring something new to the table, whether that's, you know, their hygienist, it's their dental assistant, or it's their front office team. There's so many opportunities out there to learn and to grow and to find a way to develop their skills even after we're done coaching together, whether that's long-term or that's short-term. There's always opportunities to find locally or even online opportunities for them to continue to learn and take the skills that they're learning and take them more advanced.
I want to come back to something that, and this is a theme that I've heard from you, that like new team members coming in with new ideas, putting new things on the table. Now, one thing that you have an area of expertise in, and I think for many people, this will be something new on the table, is the idea of having remote offshore team members. So maybe could you explain to us about what is a remote offshore team member in a dental practice, and maybe what are the benefits of using them, and what would they do for your practice if you had that sort of setup?
Absolutely. I am a firm believer in these remote offshore team members. Yes, it is a new concept that I don't believe is new, but not a lot of dental practices are utilizing the benefit of a virtual or remote offshore team member. When you talk to a lot of practices today, they're having a really hard time finding front office team members that will stay. So of course, the frustration for office managers or leaders in the office is that they'll onboard and bring on a front office team member, and they're there and they train them and they get them on board, only to have them, a couple months later, something happens and they're out the door. And the hard thing is that you've now invested several months into training that person to be with your practice and all the things that you do within your practice, to have them up and leave. Or you really struggle nowadays to find someone who will come in for the interview and wants to accept the job. Or they're asking hourly rate is so high, it's really hard to have the number of team members that you truly need to support your office, depending on how many providers you have and how many team members you actually need in the office and how many can actually support you remotely to facilitate the number of positions you need to fill for your practice. So what a lot of people don't realize is that the offshore team members, I work with a number of companies, they can come in and they actually come in at a lower salary compared to a local hire, which really helps practices reduce their overhead costs associated with salaries and benefits that they're offering to those that are in their office. The other thing that these remote team members can offer is an expanded talent pool. Coming from a foreign country like Zimbabwe or Costa Rica or the Philippines, to name a few, they all speak English, but they also have that benefit of having specialized skills or an experience that may be harder to find locally for a decent rate per hour. For an example, if you have a remote team member who you need to have help you with posting payments or working with accounting and helping you clean up some of your AR, you can hire a virtual assistant that has an accounting bachelor's degree. That's fantastic. I don't know that we necessarily search for that when we're looking in the United States for someone to help us with those areas, but you can find someone with a virtual team member who has an accounting degree with a bachelor's degree in accounting in some of these foreign countries. Well, that's fantastic. And you are going to get them for a lower salary rate than you do hiring from within the United States. Another really nice thing with our virtual team members is that they're in a different time zone. So they can work your business hours here in the United States, 8 to 5, 9 to 6, 7 to 2, whatever that is for your office. But they can also work for you in some of those off hours. They can work a weekend for you. They can answer your phones in those emergency hours during the evening if you're a specialty office and you do a lot of surgeries and you want to make sure that your patients can reach you, those virtual assistants, they can be available to help answer those phone calls and direct them to the doctor, which is also another great benefit. They can do insurance verifications for you overnight so that you're always staying ahead of those ahead of those insurance verifications. That's another fantastic benefit. Another is scalability. Of course, you can always scale up, scale down with your virtual assistants. If it's a busier season for you, bring on a couple extra and train them, and they're with you when you're the busier, and then scale them down when you are less busy. I love that. How I love to look at it is you can hire 2 to 3 virtual assistants for the cost of one in the United States. And this is where your remote team members have a way of increasing profitability and sustainability within your practice. They can come in and they can work those recall lists and your treatment plans that our patients haven't come back to complete. They can follow up on calls to patients that are overdue, that like your new patients, did they come back in after they came in 2 months ago? Did they complete treatment? And they are so receptive to training and perspective and growth. The last practice I was just working with about 6 months ago, they brought on 4, and those 4 virtual assistants, we really fine-tuned their responsibilities within that practice. And their first year with that practice, they had several locations, and they grew that production double within their first year because they were able to work some of these recalls and treatment plans and new patients that's so difficult for the people that are actually in the office. The biggest one I think that people really utilize their virtual team members for is answering the phone. Having someone answer your phones for you so you can focus on the team members that are right in front of you, your patients, checking out, doing treatment plans, so that somebody else can take on the calls with your patients, gives that patient experience one up than they can when they're standing right in front of you and the phones are ringing and you're not sure what you're supposed to do, because you want to give everybody that special attention and give them the experience that the patients deserve when they are with your practice. So for so many reasons, those virtual assistants can do so much for a practice.
We knew you were an encyclopedia of offshore team members, and that was phenomenal. I would never have been able to have brainstormed the number of tasks that it is possible to do when you work with team who are remote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the remote team members really can do quite a lot. It's just a matter of investing your time to train them. I think every virtual assistant that I have placed in offices and helped them onboard and train and get them fully uploaded to their offices, none of them have left. All of them have stayed. And that's, for me, really rewarding. It's amazing what they truly can do for your practice.
I love that you bring that piece of it to help somebody navigate that, because I think that's probably what holds a lot of people back, is just it's new and they don't know how to navigate that onboarding process. And I was just in a medical practice the other day where they utilized virtual assistants to answer the phone. And that was the best experience I've had in a long time, because that front office was calm. They were attentive. They made me feel welcome. They answered my questions. So from a patient experience, I think it really elevates the quality that you can provide as well.
And I think it works the reverse as well. So when your virtual assistants are answering your calls for you, they're not in the office and they're not feeling that hustle and bustle either. And so when they're talking to the patients on the phone, especially your new patients, right, that experience is just the same for them. It's calm. They're not feeling rushed. They aren't feeling like they have to hurry, hurry, hurry because I've got two people standing in front of me and another one checking out. They feel the same way. So imagine what their experience is when they come into the practice and they feel that exact same way that you did with your experience in the medical office. Mm-hmm. It's just, man, this is so relaxed. Everybody seems calm. And for those anxious patients, that just takes their anxiety down too when they walk in, and it's totally peaceful and calm. It's fantastic experience for them too.
Sounds like a win-win, I think.
It's a win-win.
Awesome. Well, you obviously demonstrated your expertise there, but you also have a huge experience in refining SOPs. And so I'm curious, what key strategies do you recommend for practices looking to improve their operational efficiencies and patient-centered care?
I love this question because I think a lot of offices, it's hard to sit down and create those SOPs. It takes time, it takes effort, and I think we feel like I'll just kind of bullet it out and we'll just kind of talk about it and it's good. But standardizing your processes for your office can be a great way for training and for setting expectations that are very clear for when you bring in new team members, even if you decide to go with a virtual assistant. It's one of the greatest things we did, and what I try to do for those virtual assistants, if they're going to answer your phone and they're going to schedule for you, creating a scheduling SOP is one of the greatest training tools, but also extremely eye-opening for the office when you say, well, how much time does the doctor need to do a root canal? Like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Okay, but how much for like an anterior tooth? Oh, only an hour. Okay, that's a huge difference, an hour and a half, or 2 hours. So creating a very standardized operating procedure where it lays out, a scheduling handbook, but also what is your procedure for when you bring in a new patient? What do you want that to look like, right? Also dealing with a scheduling, right? But also, what are your treatment protocols? When you have a patient that comes in and you've done a surgical procedure, do they sign a consent form? And what is that consent form? And when they leave, do you provide them with a surgical guideline for when they leave? Please don't use a straw. Please don't smoke when you leave today. The things that protect the business as well as the patient, what their expectations are. That scheduling SOP can also help you optimize your scheduling so there isn't a lot of downtime. That's important for your team. It's also important, I'm assuming, to your doctor. I don't want to sit around and wait. So how much assistant time do you need? How much doctor time? And then how much assistant time? So that you can lay out your schedule in a very effective way. A lot of people ask about using those perfect day scheduling. And that is great. That's also something you can utilize in your schedule, depending on your PMS system. It also enhances great communication, right? If everybody understands this is how we do this, there's also very clear and effective communication among the staff, among the doctors, among the front desk, and everybody understands. So implementing, regular team meetings, utilizing communication tools, and establishing these protocols helps for great patient handoffs to improve your communication flow within the office. Are you going to utilize route slips so that there's a checklist? Not everybody uses them because they have different communications within their office. If you have a huge practice, does that help your practice by utilizing the route slips? But by having, a very clear standard operating procedure within your practice for everything that you're doing really helps practices realize where they have a lack of understanding, but it also helps you see where people have understood different things. I was just in a practice last week, helping to create some of these SOPs when we realized that one department was putting notes in one spot and another department was saying, oh, no, I put my notes over here. And it really helped the team, the entire team, realize that we had to specify in their SOP manual where notes go so that everybody's utilizing the same spot. It helped clear up why this office was so confused with communication and why they seem to be dropping the ball sometimes is because notes weren't being put in the same place. So yes, creating SOPs for an office, for different teams, different departments, it can be a little time consuming, but by creating that, you help the office be more efficient. You help everybody communicate well with each other. Sometimes you need to make an investment in some type of technology, whether that's, you have an electronic health record, you have some type of imaging system that you need to follow, you have a practice management software that helps streamline your process. This can go right down to another one we were just dealing with in an office, which ended up being kind of funny, was how they were tracking their lab cases. Where are those lab cases going? Who's putting it in the system? Who's tracking it when it comes back? And who's making sure the patients get scheduled if they don't have an appointment when that case comes back? So it can be a really fun process if you let it be a fun process. But again, this also comes back to if you're working with virtual assistants or even someone who just works remotely, works from home for your office, that helps them also be on the same page with your team every single time. So I love SOPs. I love helping offices create them because I think it's really fun. When everyone just kind of, this light bulb comes on for everybody and they're like, what? You're doing what? And then everyone starts laughing because they just can't believe that they're all doing it differently when they thought everybody knew where all these things were supposed to go. So I find I really do enjoy working with teams and helping them really streamline their processes and be more effective in their offices so they can work better together.
I bet it's really empowering too for team members, because if they don't know something, they know exactly where to go to look for it, as opposed to waiting for the office manager who's on the phone or helping a patient. And then, oh, now I'm busy, so I forget about it. I bet, it's super empowering to just know that if you don't know something, can figure it out with looking at those SOPs.
Absolutely. It gives them a place to go. Empower yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Empower yourself to know those SOPs in and out. And if you get in there and the answer's not there, you're helping your team be more educated and help them create a more defined SOP if it's not there. So I do love that aspect too.
There's just so much great information, and and you as the resource are phenomenal. So if people who are listening to our podcast today are just like, oh my goodness, I need more of Rebecca and transformational dental coaching in my life, in my practice, how do they find you? How do they get in touch? How does it work?
And the easiest thing I say to people is just go out and schedule a quick 30 minutes with me on my calendar and just let me know what it is that you're needing some help on or what you're looking for more information on. And I'm happy to do a free 30 minutes with anyone and we'll talk through it, see how I can help you. I don't mind doing it virtually. I don't mind coming out and doing it for your practice if it's more effective to do it with your entire team together. I'm happy to do whatever is more effective for an office and for a team. I'm really a visual person myself, so some offices find that that's the most effective ways to come out and do it with their whole practice.
Fantastic.
But
and I know we have you as a guest on our podcast today, but you also co-host a podcast, correct?
yes,
And
I do.
yeah, tell us a little bit about that, because I know there's some really great topics there that our listeners would probably be intrigued by.
Thank you. Yeah, we, my co-host Brittany Rogars and I do dental decoders, and we like to decode as many things as we can. She specializes and does a lot of training with open dental, and I focus more on the pieces we discussed today, which is more operationally. And we love to have all sorts of fun guests on our podcasts and bring different ideas and concepts to people that are looking for just a way to decode some obstacles that they face in their practices, in their business. And sometimes we even bring some fun things to our personal aspect too.
Oh, awesome. Well, we'll make sure and include a link to get a hold of you and also the podcast link in our show notes so that people have a fast way to connect with you.
Love it.
Yeah. Rebecca, thanks so much for sharing your gifts, your expertise, and making the lives of the offices that you support more efficient, better, more successful, and more fulfilling for the members that are in those teams.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here with you guys, and appreciate you inviting me on.
You bet. All right, listeners, we hope you found some encouragement from our podcast today, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Mint Door Podcast. Bye.
Bye.